A rancher saved the enemy's daughter, only to fall in love with her spirit. The sun rose slowly over the wide open valley, painting the sky in shades of gold and orange. The soft light touched the rolling hills and the green pastures, and a gentle breeze carried the smell of fresh earth and grass. On the edge of the valley stood a large ranch, stretching far into the horizon. This was Ethan's home, his life, and his responsibility. The ranch was more than just land to him. It was a place where he felt free, where he could live honestly, and where every day brought new challenges and small victories.
Ethan was a man of few words. He was tall, with strong hands that had learned to work the soil and care for animals over years of dedication.
His face was weathered by the sun and wind, yet there was a softness in his eyes that spoke of a kind heart and deep understanding. He had inherited the ranch from his father, who had taught him the importance of hard work, integrity, and respect for the land. Ethan's days began early, often before the first light of dawn, tending to his cattle, checking fences, and ensuring that everything on the ranch ran smoothly. Life in the valley was simple, yet not without tension. For many years, two families had lived side by side, their lands separated by fences, but their lives intertwined in ways that sometimes led to conflict. Disputes over grazing rights, water sources, and family disagreements were common, and the animosity between the families had grown stronger with each passing year. Ethan had always tried to avoid the conflicts, focusing instead on his work and the animals that depended on him. He believed in peace, in doing what was right, and in protecting the weak without getting caught in endless quarrels. One early morning, as Ethan rode along the edge of his property, checking the fence lines and ensuring the gates were secure, he noticed something unusual. A faint sound, almost like a cry, reached his ears. At first he thought it might be the wind or the distant call of a bird, but the sound persisted. It was a soft, distressed voice, one that carried a note of fear. Ethan stopped his horse and listened carefully. The voice was coming from the woods near the edge of the neighboring property, a place known for its thick undergrowth and hidden dangers. Without hesitation, Ethan guided his horse toward the sound, moving carefully through the uneven terrain. The closer he got, the clearer the voice became. It belonged to a young girl, no older than 14, who seemed to be in trouble. Her cries were quiet but urgent, and they tugged at something deep within Ethan. Despite the years of rivalry between the families, he felt a strong urge to help. He had always believed that no one, especially a child, deserved to be in danger simply because of a family feud. As he pushed through the last of the bushes, Ethan finally saw her. The girl was tangled in a mess of thorny vines. Her dress caught and ripped slightly as she struggled to free herself. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with fear, and her small hands worked frantically to release herself. Ethan's heart went out to her. He dismounted quickly and moved toward her, speaking in a calm, reassuring voice.
"Hey, it's okay, I'll help you," he said softly.
Burst. "Just stay still for a moment." The girl froze, her eyes darting toward him with a mixture of fear and suspicion. She clearly knew he was not from her family and that he was, in a sense, the enemy. Yet something in his tones seemed genuine, kind, and safe. Slowly, she allowed him to approach. Ethan carefully untangled the vines, making sure not to hurt her further. He worked patiently, talking gently to distract her from her fear.
"Almost there. Just a little more," he said.
Finally, with a last careful pull, the vines released their grip, and the girl stepped back, free, but still trembling.
"Are you hurt?" Ethan asked, scanning her for scratches or bruises.
Psst. She shook her head, though he could see a few scratches on her arms. Just a few scratches.
"Bess, nothing serious," he said, smiling reassuringly.
The girl's name was Lila. She spoke quietly at first, hesitant to trust him, but eventually told him that she had wandered too far while trying to collect herbs from the forest. She had not expected the vines, the uneven ground, or the fear that now gripped her heart. Her family's land bordered the forest, and she had thought she could explore safely. But danger had found her anyway. Ethan knew he could not leave her there alone. The forest was thick and full of hidden dangers, and the girl was too small and inexperienced to navigate it safely. Without thinking of the consequences from her family or the ongoing feud, he offered to take her back to his ranch. "Phew! You'll be safe at my place," he said simply. "We can clean up your scratches and then we'll figure out how to get you home safely." Lila hesitated, glancing toward the distant outline of her family's land. Fear, pride, and caution battled within her. She knew her family might be angry if she was found with the enemy. Yet she also felt the sincerity in Ethan's eyes, the calm strength that radiated from him. "Bay." Finally she nodded, trusting him just enough to take the risk. The ride back to Ethan's ranch was quiet. Lila clung tightly to the saddle in front of him, her small hands gripping the reins and his belt. Ethan guided the horse carefully, speaking in soothing tones to calm both her and the animal. The wind in her hair, the open sky above, and the gentle rhythm of the horse's steps began to ease her fear. For the first time since the morning began, she felt a flicker of hope. When they arrived at the ranch, Ethan led her to a small, cozy cabin where he kept basic medical supplies and a place for visitors or workers to rest. He cleaned her scratches carefully, using warm water and gentle hands, all the while talking to her about small, simple things: his cattle, the changing seasons, and the way the land needed care every day. Lila listened, gradually relaxing, realizing that this man, so different from anyone she knew, was kind and trustworthy.
As the sun climbed higher in the sky, the valley seemed to settle into a quiet calm.
The birds chirped, the cattle grazed peacefully, and the gentle hum of life on the ranch filled the air. Ethan and Lila shared a simple meal, sitting on the porch and letting the warm sunlight wash over them. In those quiet moments, a bond began to form, not of romance, but of trust, mutual respect, and a shared understanding that life could be better if people cared for one another, regardless of old disputes. Bah! Yet even as they laughed softly at small stories and shared simple meals, the shadow of the past loomed nearby. Both families were still entrenched in their disagreements, and Ethan knew that the decision to help Lila would not be welcomed without question. But for now, in that serene moment on the ranch, it did not matter. What mattered was the safety of the girl, the kindness of a man willing to act against prejudice, and the first step towards something that could change lives forever. Bed. As evening approached, Ethan prepared a small, comfortable bed for Lila in a corner of the cabin. He told her she could rest, and that she was safe here. For the first time that day, she allowed herself to breathe fully, the tension in her body slowly releasing. Ethan watched her with a quiet sense of satisfaction and calm, knowing that he had done the right thing, even if it complicated his life. Outside, the sun set in brilliant streaks of red and purple, casting long shadows over the ranch and the valley beyond. The air grew cool, and the sound of crickets began to fill the night. In that moment, Ethan reflected on the day's events, understanding that sometimes life demanded courage not in battle, but in the simple act of choosing to do what was right. Saving a child, protecting the innocent, and acting with integrity. These were the moments that defined a person. And as he closed the cabin door, letting Lila rest, Ethan knew that this was only the beginning of a story neither of them could yet imagine. A story of trust, challenge, and the unlikely ways life could bring people together, even from opposite sides of a long-standing feud. The morning sun spilled over the horizon, bathing Ethan's ranch in a warm golden light. Birds called to one another from the trees, and a soft breeze rustled the grass. Inside the small cabin, Lila woke to the quiet sounds of the ranch. For the first time in what felt like days, she felt safe. The tension in her shoulders had eased, and though she was still wary, she allowed herself to take a deep, calming breath. But Ethan had already begun his morning routine. He had risen early, as he always did, to check the cattle and inspect the fences. He moved with a quiet efficiency, his hands skilled from years of labor. Though Lila watched him from the doorway, a small part of her still hesitated. This man had saved her life, but he was also, in a strange way, unfamiliar and distant. There was an unspoken rule between their families, a barrier that she had been taught to respect. Yet, despite all of this, she felt a growing curiosity about him, a desire to understand who he truly was. Ethan noticed her watching and smiled gently. He glances around in disposition. "Morning, Lila," he said. His voice was calm and steady, like the land itself. "Did you sleep well?" She nodded quietly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Yes." "Thank you," she whispered, her voice soft but sincere. "Good," Ethan replied. "Breakfast will be ready soon. After that, we'll check the animals."
I can show you how we care for them if you want. Lila hesitated for a moment.
Fast. She had grown up in a different environment, one filled with strict rules and limited freedom. The idea of helping on a ranch, of learning to care for animals, both excited and intimidated her. But there was something in Ethan's tone, in the gentle way he spoke, that made her want to try. "Okay," she said finally. After breakfast, they set out into the open fields. Ethan walked beside her, showing her how to approach the cows, how to speak softly so the animals would not be frightened, and how to check the fences for breaks or weak spots. Lila listened intently, absorbing every word, and her fear slowly melted into fascination. She had never been so close to so many animals, never understood their behavior or experienced the satisfaction of helping care for them. Each new task was a small adventure, and with every step she felt a sense of accomplishment that she had rarely known before. As the day went on, their conversation grew more natural. But Lila told Ethan small things about her life, simple stories about her morning chores, her favorite flowers, and the quiet spots in the woods she liked to visit. Ethan listened patiently, asking questions and laughing softly at her innocent observations. For the first time, Lila realized that this man was not just a rescuer or a stranger. He was someone who genuinely cared about her thoughts, her feelings, and her well-being.
Yet even as their bond began to form, shadows of doubt lingered. Lila could not forget the tension between their families, and Ethan was aware that harboring her, even temporarily, would raise questions and perhaps anger on both sides.
Still, he did not let fear dictate his actions. He believed that protecting the innocent, showing kindness, and acting with integrity were more important than old grudges or rumors. In the late afternoon, Ethan led Lila to a quiet stream that ran along the edge of the ranch. The water was clear and cool, reflecting the blue sky and the golden sunlight. He showed her how to clean their hands and tools, how to check the water quality for the cattle, and how to move carefully so as not to disturb the delicate plants along the bank. Lila followed his instructions eagerly, finding comfort in the rhythm of his guidance and the peacefulness of the environment. As they worked side by side, Lila began to notice small details about Ethan that she admired. The way he moved with purpose but never hurried. The careful attention he gave to each animal, each plant, and each corner of the ranch. The quiet strength in his hands and voice. She realized that his life was shaped by dedication, honesty, and respect for the world around him. And though she had barely known him, she felt a growing sense of admiration, not just for his abilities, but for the kind of person he was. Ethan, too, was observing Lila closely. He noticed her curiosity, her willingness to try new tasks, and the careful way she treated the animals. He saw her determination, her courage, and the kindness in her eyes even after everything she had been through that morning. In many ways, her spirit reminded him of the land itself, resilient, gentle, and capable of growth. He felt a quiet respect for her, recognizing qualities that went far beyond the surface, qualities that could not be taught but were born within her. As the sun began to dip toward the horizon, painting the sky with shades of pink and purple, they returned to the cabin. Lila was tired, but in a good way. A tired that came from learning, working, and discovering something new about herself and the world around her. Ethan prepared a simple dinner, and they sat together, talking about small, ordinary things, the weather, the animals, the stars that would soon appear in the night sky. During the meal, a sense of normalcy settled between them. For a few hours, the world outside the ranch, its disputes, its judgments, its unspoken rules, seemed distant and unimportant. In those moments, there was only the two of them, sharing food, stories, and the simple joy of being alive. After dinner, Ethan suggested a short walk around the property. The evening air was cool and fragrant, filled with the scent of grass, earth, and wildflowers. Lila walked beside him, her steps careful but confident, her eyes taking in the beauty of the valley. They passed the grazing cows, the wooden fences, and the gentle hills that stretched far into the distance. The world felt vast and safe, and in a quiet way, Lila began to trust it, and Ethan, more with each passing moment. At one point, they paused near a small grove of trees where wildflowers grew in abundance. Lila picked a few, holding them carefully in her hands. Ethan smiled, noticing how she handled them gently, respecting their delicate petals. "Do you have a good heart?" he said quietly. "Not as a compliment, but as an observation. You care about things most people overlook."
Lila looked up at him, surprised by the sincerity in his voice.
She had been praised before, but never in this way, never for the quiet strength she carried inside her. I just try," she said softly, her cheeks warming slightly.
Ethan nodded, understanding.
He did not push her further, did not force conversation. He simply allowed the moment to exist, letting her know that her efforts, her care, and her spirit were seen and valued. In that silence, a connection deepened, not through words, but through understanding, respect, and shared experience. As night fell, they returned to the cabin. Lila prepared for bed, and Ethan ensured that she had everything she needed to be comfortable. Before leaving, he spoke gently. "You've done well today, Bea. I'm proud of you. Rest now. You deserve it." Lila felt a warmth in her chest, a feeling of safety and appreciation that she had rarely experienced before. She nodded, a small smile forming on her lips. "Thank you, Ethan," she said, her voice carrying the quiet strength she had shown throughout the day. Ethan watched her settle, the soft light of the cabin illuminating her thoughtful face. Fast. He knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges, new tasks, and perhaps new tensions with her family. But for now, he allowed himself a moment of quiet satisfaction. He had kept her safe, taught her something about life and the land, and perhaps most importantly, had begun to earn her trust. Outside the valley lay bathed in moonlight, peaceful and serene. The animals were calm, the wind whispered through the trees, and the stars sparkled above like tiny diamonds. Within the cabin, Lila slept peacefully, her mind filled with new knowledge, new experiences, and a growing sense of hope. Ethan sat quietly for a while, reflecting on the day, knowing that the bond they had begun to form was fragile, but meaningful. In that quiet night, a seed of understanding and trust was planted, a seed that would grow in the days to come, shaping the relationship between the two in ways neither of them could yet imagine. And as the ranch lay still under the moonlight, It became clear that the events of that day were only the beginning of a journey that would test courage, kindness, and the strength of the human spirit. Bang! The next morning, the valley awoke to a soft mist hovering over the rolling hills. The air smelled fresh, filled with dew and the earthy scent of grass. Ethan was already outside tending to the cattle and checking the fences as he always did. Lila, now more familiar with the rhythm of ranch life, followed him quietly. She had learned to rise early, to respect the quiet hours before the day became busy, and to appreciate the beauty of simple tasks. Though the morning began peacefully, an undercurrent of tension lingered. Ethan knew that word of Lila's presence on his ranch would soon reach her family, and he had to prepare for that eventual confrontation. He moved with deliberate calm, finishing chores efficiently, but always keeping one eye on the distant hills, where trouble might appear.
Lila, sensing his unease, stayed close, her small hand brushing against his arm as she followed him through the fields.
"Don't worry," Ethan said softly, noticing her concern. "They'll come. Yes, but I'll handle it. For now, focus on helping me. That's what matters." She nodded, her lips pressed into a thin line. She trusted him, but the thought of her family discovering her here filled her with both fear and guilt. She had never imagined that curiosity could lead to such complications. Yet she felt a quiet gratitude toward Ethan, who had given her safety and kindness when she needed it most. They worked together through the morning, mending fences, feeding the animals, and checking the water supply. Ethan showed Lila how to balance patience with efficiency, how to care for creatures that could not speak, and how to notice small signs that indicated health or distress. Lila listened intently, absorbing each lesson. She began to see a new perspective on life, one that valued understanding, compassion, and steady work over haste or aggression. As they paused for a short break, Ethan sat on a fallen log, wiping sweat from his brow.
"You're doing well," he said, a rare smile lighting his face.
"You have a good eye for detail, and your hands are careful. That's important on a ranch." Lila looked down at her own hands, imagining how much they had changed in a single day. They were no longer just small, delicate hands. They were hands that had worked, learned, and discovered strength she hadn't known she possessed. "Thank you," she replied softly. "Bye. I like it here. It feels different from home." Ethan nodded, understanding the complexity behind her words. "It's a different kind of life," he said. "Hard work, yes, but also honest. You see the results of your effort, and it's rewarding." Their quiet conversation was interrupted by a distant sound, the rumble of horses approaching from the direction of Lila's family's property. Ethan's heart tightened slightly, but he maintained a calm exterior. But Lila's face turned pale, her eyes wide with worry.
"They're coming," she whispered, almost to herself.
Bad. Fear and anticipation mixed in her voice.
"My family, they'll be angry." Ethan placed a steady hand on her shoulder.
"We'll face it together," he said. "Stay close and trust me. Everything will be all right." As the riders drew nearer, Ethan and Lila stepped into the open field to meet them. Lila's father and older brother appeared first, riding with urgency. Their faces were stern, their eyes searching the ranch as if trying to claim what they believed was theirs. "Bye." Ethan dismounted calmly, gesturing for Lila to stay behind him. "Ethan!" her father called, his voice firm but controlled. "We've heard that our daughter is here. What is she doing on your property?" Ethan met his gaze steadily. "G was in danger in the woods," he explained simply. "I found her tangled in vines and brought her here for safety." Nothing more. Lila's father's eyes narrowed, a mix of anger, concern, and disbelief flashing across his face. You expect me to believe that? He demanded.
You know the history between our families. I know, Ethan replied calmly. But this wasn't about families.
He was about saving a life. You can argue about old grudges later.
Yes. Right now, she is safe. Lila's brother stepped forward, his posture tense. We should have been the ones to find her, he said. She is our responsibility. Ethan shook his head gently. You weren't there. I was. That's all that matters. For a moment, silence hung over the field. The tension was thick, but Ethan's steady presence seemed to calm some of it. Lila, though still nervous, stepped forward slightly, her small frame visible between the men. She felt a surge of courage she had not known before, inspired by Ethan's calm demeanor and his unwavering protection. Please, she said softly, her voice firm despite the trembling of her hands. I was scared. He helped me. He helped me. Her words carried weight, surprising even her family. They had always seen her as fragile and dependent, yet here she was, speaking with courage, acknowledging the danger she had faced, and asserting her own voice. Ethan felt a quiet pride in her. Pride not just for her bravery, but for the maturity and spirit she was beginning to show. After a tense moment, Lila's father sighed, his expression softening slightly. I see she is unharmed, he admitted, his tone less sharp than before. But this cannot happen again.
We have rules. We have boundaries.
I understand, Ethan replied. I only want her to be safe. Nothing else. The conversation ended with a tense agreement. Lila would remain on Ethan's ranch temporarily, under his care, until arrangements could be made for her return. Though her family's anger had not disappeared entirely, there was a reluctant acknowledgement of trust. They knew, deep down, that Ethan's actions were honorable, even if they went against the expectations of the past. Once the visitors left, Ethan and Lila returned to their routine. The encounter had been intense, and both were quiet for a time. Lila's thoughts swirled with conflicting emotions. Fear of anger, gratitude for protection, and admiration for Ethan's courage. Ethan, too, reflected on the challenges ahead. He knew that keeping Lila safe while respecting her family's boundaries would not be easy, but he was committed to doing what was right. In the days that followed, their bond grew stronger. Lila began to learn more about the daily life on the ranch, feeding the animals, checking fences, preparing food, and understanding the rhythms of nature. She discovered a sense of independence and responsibility that she had not known before. Ethan guided her patiently, correcting her gently when she made mistakes and praising her effort when she succeeded. One afternoon, as they repaired a section of broken fence, Lila paused and looked at Ethan thoughtfully. Bea, I've never met anyone like you, she said quietly.
You care about people and animals in a way I didn't understand before.
Ethan paused, wiping sweat from his brow. He considered her words carefully. I care about what's right, he said simply. I believe we should help others when we can. That includes animals, people.
Even someone from a family we've had disagreements with. Lila nodded, absorbing his words.
She realized that courage and kindness were not always loud or dramatic. They could be quiet, steadfast, and powerful in their own way. She felt inspired, not just by Ethan's actions, but by the principles he lived by. As the sun set over the valley, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Ethan and Lila returned to the cabin.
They shared a simple meal, and then Lila helped Ethan with small chores inside the house, sweeping, organizing tools, and preparing things for the next day. The routine, though simple, felt comforting and grounding. That evening, as they sat on the porch watching the stars appear one by one, Lila spoke again. "Do you think that things between our families will ever change?" she asked softly. Ethan looked at the sky, his expression thoughtful. "I don't know," he admitted. "But I do know that one act of kindness can start a change. It might take time, it might be hard, but it starts with small steps, like helping someone when they need it, even if it's not easy." Lila smiled faintly, feeling hope stir within her. For the first time, she believed that the world could be bigger than family rivalries, fear, and anger. She saw that courage, honesty, and kindness could create bridges where walls once stood. As the night deepened, Lila lay in bed, reflecting on the events of the day. She had faced fear, spoken her truth, and witnessed acts of bravery that inspired her. She felt a growing respect and admiration for Ethan, not for his strength alone, but for the way he lived, the way he cared, and the way he had chosen to do what was right, even when it was difficult. Ethan, meanwhile, sat quietly in the corner of the cabin, listening to the soft sounds of Lila's breathing. He understood that the challenges of the coming days would test both of them, but he also recognized the quiet bond forming between them. A bond of trust, respect, and mutual understanding. One that would shape their journey in ways neither could yet imagine. And as the moon rose high over the valley, casting silver light over the ranch, it seemed that even amidst old conflicts, fear, and uncertainty, something new was beginning. A connection built not on words alone, but on courage, spirit, and the quiet strength of two people learning to trust one another. Bah! The valley woke slowly, bathed in the soft, golden light of early morning. Mist hovered over the fields, and the smell of fresh grass and damp earth filled the air. On Ethan's ranch, the day began like any other, with a quiet hum of life stirring around him. He moved with purpose, checking the fences, feeding the animals, and ensuring that everything was in order. Yet beneath the calm routine, an unspoken tension lingered, an awareness that the events of the previous days had not gone unnoticed.
Lila moved beside him, now confident in her steps and actions.
She had grown accustomed to life on the ranch, learning quickly and taking on small responsibilities with pride. Her hands, once delicate and uncertain, were now steady and capable. She carried herself with a quiet confidence, one that came from mastering small challenges and discovering a new kind of independence. Ethan noticed the subtle changes in her, the way she approached tasks with care, the thoughtful way she observed the animals, and the courage she displayed even in uncertain situations. He felt a quiet pride in her growth and a deepening admiration for her spirit. There was something in her resilience, her ability to remain kind and brave even when scared, that drew him closer to her, not in a fleeting way, but in a profound respect for her character. The morning's peaceful rhythm was broken by a sudden commotion near the edge of the property. Ethan's ears caught the sound of shouting and hooves striking the ground. Lila stiffened beside him, recognizing the voices of her own family mixed with concern and anger. Her heart raced, a knot of fear tightening in her chest. "They're here," she whispered, almost too softly to hear. "My father. My brother. They've come for me." Ethan placed a steadying hand on her shoulder. "Stay calm," he said quietly. "Well, we'll handle this together. Just follow my lead." As they approached the field, Lila's father and brother appeared, riding swiftly and with urgency. Their faces were stern, and their eyes glinted with a mixture of worry and frustration. Ethan dismounted calmly, keeping his voice even as he addressed them. "I understand your concern," he said. "She was in danger, and I brought her here to keep her safe, nothing more."
Lila's father dismounted, his expression a mixture of anger and disbelief. Safe? Do you call this safe?
You've brought her onto enemy land. This is unacceptable.
Ethan met his gaze without flinching.
I did what any responsible person would do. She was at risk. I acted to protect her, and I will continue to do so until it is safe for her to return. Lila's brother stepped forward, tension radiating from his posture. We cannot simply leave her here.
Bay. She is our responsibility. Ethan shook his head. She was alone and in danger. But if I hadn't acted, who knows what could have happened? For a long moment, silence hung in the air. The wind rustled the trees, and the cattle shifted uneasily. Sensing the tension, Lila stood slightly behind Ethan. Her small hands clenched, yet her eyes held a quiet determination. She had faced fear before, and now she realized that courage was not the absence of fear, but the choice to act despite it.
Bah!
Finally, Lila spoke, her voice steady and clear.
I am safe here.
Bro, Ethan helped me. I trust him.
I know he will protect me. Her words struck her father and brother.
They had always seen Lila as delicate, dependent, and easily frightened. Yet here she was, speaking for herself, acknowledging the danger she had faced, and expressing trust in someone outside her family. But the moment was small, but it carried immense weight. Her father's face softened slightly, though tension still lingered. Bah.
I see she is unharmed, he said quietly, but this cannot continue.
Rules must be respected. Ethan nodded. But
I understand, he said, but we both know that safety must come first.
I will ensure she is safe. Always. The conversation ended with an uneasy agreement. Lila would remain on Ethan's ranch temporarily, and arrangements would be made for her eventual return. Though her family's anger had not vanished, there was a reluctant acknowledgement that Ethan had acted with integrity. The next days were filled with routine and quiet lessons. Lila continued to learn about the ranch, growing in confidence and skills. She fed the animals, checked fences, and assisted Ethan in small tasks that required patience and careful observation. Each day, she discovered new strengths within herself, skills she had never imagined, courage she did not know she possessed, and a sense of responsibility that gave her purpose. One afternoon, as they repaired a fence near the farthest corner of the property, a sudden noise startled the cattle. A stampede erupted, and the animals began running wildly across the field. Ethan reacted immediately, shouting commands and moving with practiced precision to guide the frightened animals away from danger. Lila froze for a moment, her heart racing, but Ethan's calm presence reminded her to act. "Follow me!" he called, his voice steady above the chaos. "Help guide them toward the open field!" Lila ran alongside him, shouting softly to the animals, using the techniques Ethan had taught her. Her fear remained, but it was tempered by focus and determination. Together they worked to calm the stampeding herd, guiding them safely away from fences, trees, and potential hazards. The air was filled with the sound of hooves, shouting, and rustling grass, but slowly, with patience and coordination, the animals began to settle. When the last cow was safely in the open field, Ethan looked at Lila with quiet pride. "You did well," he said. "You stayed calm and helped guide them."
That takes courage and presence of mind.
Lila's chest swelled with a mix of relief and pride. I was scared," she admitted. "But I wanted to help." Ethan nodded. "Fear is natural. What matters is what you do with it." The stampede, though frightening, became a defining moment for both of them. Lila realized the depth of her own courage and the importance of trust. Trust in herself, trust in Ethan, and trust in the lesson she had learned. Ethan, in turn, saw the remarkable spirit within Lila, the courage, intelligence, and compassion that set her apart. Evening brought a calm after the storm. The sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the valley. Ethan and Lila returned to the cabin, tired but satisfied with the day's work. They shared a simple meal, the quiet comfort of routine balancing the tension of earlier events. As night fell, the stars appeared in a clear sky, twinkling like tiny beacons of hope. Lila stepped outside, looking up, and felt a sense of wonder. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Ethan joined her, standing beside her in quiet reflection. "Yes," he said softly. "It's easy to forget beauty when life feels complicated, but it's always there, waiting for us to notice."
Lila nodded, feeling the truth of his words.
Bear. She realized that courage, kindness, and the ability to act with integrity were not separate from beauty. They were part of it. She began to understand that life's greatest lessons often came through challenge, through moments that demanded bravery, compassion, and patience. Days passed, and the bond between Ethan and Lila grew stronger. They shared stories, learned from one another, and faced small trials together. The tension with her family remained, but it no longer dominated every thought or action.
Lila had discovered strength within herself, and Ethan had seen the depth of her spirit.
One evening, as they sat by the small stream near the edge of the property, Lila spoke quietly. "Ray, do you think we can make a difference? That things between our families can change?" Ethan considered her question, his gaze fixed on the flowing water. "I don't know for certain," he admitted, "but I believe that one act of courage and kindness can start change." "It might take time, and it might not be easy, but it starts with small steps, with choices that reflect what is right rather than what is expected."
Lila smiled faintly, a sense of hope blossoming within her.
"I want to take those steps," she said. "I want to do what's right, even if it's hard." Ethan placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "And you will. You already have."
That's why I trust you. As the night deepened, Lila lay in bed reflecting on the events of the past days.
She had faced danger, experienced fear, and discovered courage she had not known existed. She had learned the importance of trust, the value of compassion, and the quiet strength that comes from choosing to do what is right. Ethan, sitting quietly in the cabin, felt a profound respect for Lila. He knew the days ahead would bring further challenges, but he also knew that her spirit, courage, and kindness would see her through. Together they had faced trials, protected one another, and formed a bond that went beyond words, a bond built on trust, respect, and shared experience. And as the moon rose over the valley, bathing the ranch in silver light, it was clear that the true trial was not over. The journey ahead would test them, challenge their beliefs, and push them to act with courage. But for the first time, they faced the future not with fear, but with hope, determination, and the quiet certainty that they could face whatever came together. The valley woke to a crisp morning, the sunlight spilling across the rolling hills and touching the fields with gold. Birds sang softly in the trees, and the gentle hum of the ranch. Cows lowing, wind rustling through the grass. The faint creak of fence posts created a sense of quiet peace. Ethan rose early, as was his habit, moving through the routine tasks of ranch life with steady precision. But today felt different. There was a sense of anticipation in the air, a feeling that change was approaching, and that the events of recent days were leading to something new.
Lila stirred quietly in the cabin, sensing the shift in the morning. She had grown used to the rhythms of the ranch, to the quiet lessons and gentle routines that had shaped her days since she arrived.
She had learned to care for the animals, to repair fences, and to move with patience and focus through the fields.
But she had also discovered something deeper, a courage and resilience she had never known, and a growing respect and admiration for Ethan, the man who had saved her and guided her through these lessons.
After a simple breakfast, Ethan and Lila walked together toward the far fields, where the early sunlight illuminated the grass and painted long shadows across the land. Their conversation was quiet, comfortable, filled with reflections on the past days. Lila spoke of what she had learned, the strength she had discovered within herself, and the hope she felt for a future that seemed brighter than before. Ethan listened, offering gentle encouragement and wisdom, his quiet presence a constant source of reassurance. But even amidst the calm, both knew that the moment of reckoning was approaching. Lila's family, though tempered by respect and trust for Ethan, could not ignore the events that had transpired. The time had come to face them fully, to reconcile the tensions and to bring closure to the challenges of the past days.
As the sun climbed higher, a group of riders appeared on the horizon.
Lila's father, brother, and a few trusted neighbors approached the ranch, their expressions serious but less tense than before. Ethan and Lila walked forward to meet them, standing side by side with quiet confidence. "Ethan," Lila's father began, his voice steady, "we have come to speak properly, to understand what has happened, and to find a way forward." Ethan nodded, meeting his gaze calmly.
I agree. I have done what I could to protect Lila, and I have done it because I believed it was right.
But I am ready to talk, to listen, and to find a way that respects both your family and mine. There was a pause, a moment of quiet reflection as the two men studied one another.
Lila stepped forward, feeling a surge of courage she had discovered in the days of challenge and learning. "I am safe now," she said, her voice clear.
I have learned, I have grown, and I trust Ethan because he has shown me kindness, courage, and care. I hope that you can see that too.
Her words struck a chord.
They had always known her to be careful and obedient, but now she spoke with authority, with confidence, and with the wisdom of experience. Her father and brother exchanged glances, recognizing the truth in her words, the growth in her spirit, and the honesty in Ethan's actions.
After a long, tense silence, Lila's father sighed and nodded.
You are right, Lila, he admitted.
"We can see that you have been safe and that Ethan's actions were guided by care and courage. Perhaps we have been too quick to judge." Her brother stepped forward as well, a reluctant smile appearing on his face.
We may not fully understand it, but we see that what happened was the right thing.
"Thank you, Ethan, for keeping her safe." Ethan nodded, feeling a sense of relief wash over him. The tension, though not completely gone, had eased significantly. There was a recognition of shared humanity, a quiet understanding that kindness, courage, and integrity could bridge gaps that years of rivalry had built. Over the next few days, arrangements were made for Lila to return home safely when her family was ready. Yet she and Ethan continued their routines on the ranch, not because she had to, but because she had grown to love the land, the animals, and the sense of purpose that life here had given her. Each day brought lessons, small victories, and the quiet joy of shared experiences. During one late afternoon, as they repaired a section of fence together, Lila paused and looked at Ethan thoughtfully. "You know," she said softly, "I've never met anyone who treats people the way you do. You care about what's right, not what's easy. And that means a lot to me." Ethan paused, wiping his hands on his worn jeans.
Thank you, he said quietly.
"I try to do what's right, and I see that in you too, Lila. You've grown so much in these days. I'm proud of you." Her cheeks warmed slightly and she looked down, feeling a mixture of pride and humility. The bond between them had deepened, not merely as rescuer and rescued, but as two people who had come to respect and understand one another.
Lila's admiration for Ethan's character had grown, and Ethan's respect for her courage, intelligence, and kindness had become something profound. As the sun set, painting the sky in hues of orange, pink, and purple, they walked together to the edge of the property.
The valley stretched out before them, calm and serene, reflecting the peace that had settled after days of challenge.
Lila turned to Ethan, her eyes reflecting both the fading sunlight and the depth of her emotions.
I never imagined, she said softly, that I could feel this, at home, at peace, and safe, even away from my family. Bay. Ethan placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. You've earned this peace, he said. Through courage, patience, and kindness, you've shown strength beyond your years, and that is something to hold on to. But there was a quiet moment between them, a sense of connection that went beyond words. They had faced fear, navigated tension, and discovered courage and trust in one another. The love that had quietly grown was not sudden or overwhelming, but steady, rooted in respect, admiration, and the recognition of shared trials. It was the kind of love that began with the spirit, the character, courage, and kindness of a person, rather than appearances or fleeting moments. Over the following days, Lila's family visited the ranch more often, slowly learning to trust the place that had kept her safe. They observed her growth, her confidence, and the way she moved with assurance in the world around her. And they began to see Ethan not as an enemy, but as a man of integrity, courage, and care. When the day came for Lila to return home permanently, the farewell was quiet but filled with meaning. She hugged Ethan tightly, feeling a mixture of gratitude, respect, and the subtle warmth of affection. Desp, thank you, she whispered, for everything. For saving me, for teaching me, and for showing me what courage and kindness truly mean.
Ethan smiled, his voice soft but steady. You've taught me too, Lila.
About courage, about resilience, and about the strength of a spirit that refuses to give up. You will do great things in life, I know it. Bet. As she walked toward her family, Lila looked back, her heart full. She knew that this experience would shape her forever, that the lessons, the bond, and the quiet courage she had discovered on the ranch would stay with her always. And Ethan, watching her go, felt a profound sense of fulfillment. He had protected, guided, and witnessed the growth of a remarkable young woman. And in the quiet moments of reflection, he realized that he had fallen in love. Not with her youth or appearance, but with her spirit, her courage, and her unyielding kindness. Life returned to a steady rhythm on the ranch. The animals grazed peacefully, the fences stood strong, and the land thrived under Ethan's care. But now there was a deeper sense of connection, hope, and understanding. The valley, once marked by rivalry and tension, began to feel lighter, filled with the possibility of reconciliation, trust, and respect. Occasionally, Lila would visit the ranch with her family. Each time she and Ethan shared quiet conversations, small lessons, and the simple joy of working together. Their bond grew stronger with each passing day, rooted not in words alone but in shared experience, understanding, and the recognition of the goodness in each other. And though their families' histories remained complex, the story of a young girl saved by courage and kindness and the rancher who had honored her spirit became a quiet legend in the valley. A story of bravery, respect, and love that transcended old grudges. In the end, Ethan and Lila had discovered something far more profound than rivalry or fear. They had found trust, admiration, and a love that began in the heart and spirit, growing slowly, steadily, and truly. And as the sun set over the peaceful valley, they stood side by side, ready to face the future with courage, hope, and the quiet knowledge that the bonds of spirit and kindness could overcome even the deepest divides.